Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Citizen from Deft Gamers, and basically going to take you through a quick overview of how to build a build. Basically, the initial basics. This isn't any specific build, although this is the build that I used during the initial private beta that I came up with at the end. So it was a healer-healer build. And I'll go through the gear pieces and stuff. So basically, both skill sets were heal skills. So with that said, basically we got the main menu in front of us, and we're gonna basically highlight just on the screen where different elements on the main menu are. If you know these, you can obviously jump forward. And that's basically where we're gonna start. So let's get into it. The first thing we have is the specialist ammo. Kind of strange to actually be putting this on here. It's pretty obvious, but I actually didn't realize it was there until I started making this video. And in the top right hand corner, it shows you how much ammo and what your ammo capacity is for your specialty weapon. So next we'll jump right into the main stats, which is the second most obvious thing on screen. Which defines your amount of armor, health, and skill power. I put little notes there in regards to required, irrelevant, and necessary. That's my personal opinion with the Division 2 at this point. So obviously armor is the most important thing you're going to need, and skill power would be the second most important, with health being the third. Honestly, when building builds in Division 2 initially, I don't expect myself putting anything into health at all. Next, we have mods and mod inventory. So this is pretty similar in some regards to the Division 1, but there are some differences. So on the far right, we actually have a gear mod inventory, and that's gear mod specific. It looks like we will be limited in the amount of gear mods that we can carry at any given time. It is not part of our main inventory, and each of the weapon and gear mods actually are highlighted with squares. So the important thing to note about those squares are that certain gear may have one square, two, three, up to four squares, I believe, and you could get two gold pieces of the same brand or high-end pieces, and one may have three gear mod slots and the other may have two. Another addition is that you can actually mod your skills, which is actually a nice attribute. And I don't want to get too far into the mods, basically because there isn't a whole lot of mods out there that I've seen or collected over time. But basically, the premise of the mods is that they actually add attributes to your build. And we'll get into the attribute category in a little while. Okay, moving right into weapon and gear talents. So, if you're familiar with Division 1, these are pretty straightforward. They are different in regards to, for the weapons anyways, the way they're broken down. I'm not going to get into the details in this video because this is just the basics. And honestly, when building a build in Division 2, the talents are really secondary to the attribute and the attribute categories. You're actually going to want to build your build with a really strong base foundation and then use your talents to supplement that based on what type of build you're building and what those base attributes are. And I look at it from that perspective because talents are kind of hypothetical, like they're hypothetical situations. So, you need to do this for this to be activated or do that to have that activated. And the most important thing is initially to focus on the things that you know you're going to always have no matter what. So it's not dependent on you doing something for something to get activated. So, and also to know all your gear has one talent and the actual attribute categories and define whether your talents are active or non-active. So for all your gear, you can have one talent on each gear piece. And for your weapons, you can have up to three. For your primary, secondary, and your sidearm, you get two talents. So the last thing we're going to look at is the attribute categories on the main menu. So this element, I don't even know if you call it the attribute categories, but that's what we're going to call it, is the most, in my opinion, important part of the foundation of any build in the Division 2 at this point from what I can see. So this is a combination of every attribute that you have from your weapon mods to your gear mods to your skill mods, and they've broken them down into three categories. And I'm calling them the defensive elements, which would be the shield, the damage elements, which is kind of that circle icon, and skill elements, which is the battery. So I have there listed also, an example of a defensive element would be bonus armor. Damage element would be critical hit damage or critical hit chance, something like that, something that's going to increase your damage. And then skill elements such as cooldown reduction, but they also have skill elements that increase like the skill for your hive specifically, or even just your skill power. All of those would be, so every attribute that is in the game is classified as one of these three elements. And so the goal for your base build in building a solid build is basically stacking as many of those elements as you can under one of those three categories, or diversifying and creating an equal build if you'd like. So, and you're also going to want to take note, like inside each of those symbols, there's a number. So that actually tells you how many attributes you have of that particular category. And those numbers are very important because those numbers are what you're going to need to keep an eye on if you have specific talents on your weapon or your gear that you want to activate. So if you have too many of them, then you're going to want to reduce that attribute category by removing something or an attribute somewhere within your build. So those are very important to keep an eye on. Okay, so at this point, I hope you guys are following along just fine. I know it's kind of like a lecture, which I hate doing lectures, but I wish it was more of a conversation. But moving forward, we're going to get into the gear brand information, and this is where we're actually going to start breaking things down and really kind of understanding the different gear pieces and what the different parts of the gear piece are, and then how everything actually fits together and builds into your character stats. And I'll be showing samples of that as we move forward. So this section talks about the gear brand information, and we're going to start off with the brand sets. So a set is basically a combination of, or any combination of the same gear brand. So this particular build that I used during the private beta is actually built of one Douglas and Harding, 2 Alps Summit pieces, and 3 Sokolov pieces. So I'm not going to get into like complete details of the different brands and what the different brands are, but every brand set has up to 3 elements that can be unlocked. And what determines whether those elements are unlocked or not is how many pieces you have of the same brand. And we'll get into that, and I will show you a visual. So looking at the 3 Sokolov pieces, gear pieces that I have, you can see actually it says brand set 3 of 3, and so I've unlocked all 3 of those elements. When we get to the other ones, it'll show the 2 unlocked for the Alps and the 1 unlocked for the Douglas and Harding piece that I have. Now, even though it actually has like the 3 on each one, they don't stack. You only get the 1. And so I'm highlighting those on the left, and we're going to show how all of this adds up with the attributes. And that's why I'm actually just calling these elements. They're just base elements for the brand that you can unlock by having X number of brand pieces of the same set. Okay, so I took the 3 pieces from the Sokolov and put them to the left. Now I have my 2 Alps Summit pieces. And so I've unlocked 2 elements. So I took those 2 elements and I've put those to the left. And those will all start the base of my build, and I can start kind of stacking elements to either increase damage, increase skill power, those types of things. And we'll do the same with the Douglas and Harding. So here with the Douglas and Harding, I only have one element unlocked. So I'm going to move it to the left, and that'll be an additional piece that is a base part of my overall build, the foundation. So once you've identified all of your brand elements, which it will always be 6 elements, because there are only 6 pieces. You can, if you have 4 pieces of the same brand, you're most likely only going to unlock 3 elements. So actually, you may have less than 6. So there's different ways to look at it. But from what I've seen so far, you typically there's only 3 elements per brand set. So having more than 3 elements of a particular brand set really doesn't make a lot of sense unless the attributes of that brand piece are that important and you want to stack those. So moving forward, basically we took all of those 6 elements and created a total brand base brand set. So all of those elements will then apply to your attribute stats or your character stats at the end. So we're going to move right into the brand attributes. So now we're going to take each brand attribute from each brand or each gear piece, and we're going to pull it to the left. So we pulled it to the left, and as you see, we're going to get into a screen where it just kind of shows them all kind of stacked on top of each other. But these are the actual attributes, and each one is an individual element. So I believe, like moving forward, when we get into the end game and the full game is released, that I've actually heard that there is going to be a recalibration station and all of that. So these are the elements that will most likely you'll be able to recalibrate. And it is actually my understanding that you most likely might be able to remove elements from your attributes as well. And that understanding is based off your talent requirements because let's say, you know, you need 5 of 10 of a particular, you know, brand attribute category. Well, let's say you don't really need, you know, skill cooldown reduction with this particular build, which is the battery, and you have one too many batteries to turn on a weapon talent, you could actually remove that from your gear piece. But that's kind of getting into it and down the road. But for right now, we just want to look at and recognize that each of these have one of the 3 brand attribute categories. So with that said, if we look at the left-hand side, you'll see we have a total of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 items, but we actually have duplicates over there, right? So obviously those are going to stack. So we took all of those, and to the right, we calculated our total brand attributes. And now we're going to move into the actual brand talents real quickly. So I just want to cover the brand talents like really quickly and not get too far into depth because they are those elements that I said are kind of to me secondary. They're not really for your the base build. They actually enhance the base of your build, the foundation, because they are kind of you need to do this to unlock that or in battle, right? So you know, hit 10 shots in a row and you get this, or you know, be in cover for 3 seconds and you get that. So you only get one brand talent per gear piece. Some of them don't even have them. So here we actually have 3 unlocked and one that is actually locked. And here I'll switch to the screen to show you guys exactly kind of what the requirements are. So the first one that is locked, that isn't actually active, it says I need 4 or less of the shield, which I actually have 5 shield pieces. So I would actually have to, somewhere within my build, if I wanted to unlock that talent, remove a shield piece from my set. And obviously, we've gone through this. There's multiple places for you to be able to do that. You can even do it on weapon mods. So that's how you would actually unlock your talents for each of the gear brand talents. So I'm not going to go any further into the brand talents and talents in general, specifically because it's not really part of your initial build. I mean, yeah, they are important. They will definitely help you, but they are not the foundation. To me, I view them as extras. So we're actually going to get into character stats, which real quickly, and this will be the end of the video, I promise you. And so basically, I didn't cover skill mods. I didn't cover weapon mods. I covered some, the gear mods. Actually, we didn't really kind of go over those, but they all have attributes. All three of those have attributes that will add onto this, and you'll see on the right-hand screen where I've taken the totals that I actually calculated from the brand sets and the brand attributes, and then we'll have gear mods and weapon mods and skill mods, which those then will obviously all apply to the foundation of our build, right? So you can see there's no talents involved here. So really, this screen and the character stats screen, even in Division 1, was the most important screen that I looked at constantly to kind of see, you know, how much crit hit chance do I have? How much, skill power do I have? How much, crit hit damage am I doing? How much enemy armor damage am I doing? Damage to elites and even all weapon damage, those types of things. So the all of these things are the most important things: your character stats and the base. And bringing this video to a close, which I'm sure you guys are all excited for, is I'm just going to go through the character stats of the build that I have. And as I think I said earlier, this was actually kind of a healer DPS build, self-heal, not team heal. So I ran actually two skill heals. I ran the drone fixer and the seeker healer. I don't remember what it was called specifically. But moving forward, we'll take a look at the screens. I'll just pop them up here for a few seconds so you guys can pause the screen and take a look. The second screen here actually was you can switch between weapons. So that second weapon screen was my SMG, and the rest of these screens are all showing my Super 90 shotgun. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or corrections below, and I will be happy to get back to you or start a conversation. Thanks.